Okay, so today is going to be a little bit tedious, I guess, a little bit boring maybe, but I want to go over some terms useful, I think, in chips, knowing chips. What's a chip? A chip is a computer chip, an integrated circuit. It's made on a small flat piece of silicon. Sorry for reading, but I think it's worth just going through these terms so in future we've got them straight. It's not often you get a kind of lexicography of the chip. Anyway, the chip is made up of is made on a small flat piece of silicon with silicon, boron, and phosphorus in the circuits. Okay, so what we have is three kinds of chips. There's a chip called the logics, or a set of chips called the logics, which are advanced logic chips, and these power laptops, cell phones, and graphical processing units, GPUs. The second type of chip is a memory chip, and the third type is a legacy chip. Now, legacy chips are analog chips like sensors turning signals into digital data. They're radio frequency chips that communicate with cell phones and networks, and semiconductors that manage how devices use electricity. Then we come to a big long word called photolithography, which is actually what this is all about. It's used to layer patterns on the silicon wafer. Fabs is the technical term, or the term that's used, the slang term, I suppose, but it's actually a common term in common use. Fabs are the factory floors where the chips are made. This is quite important because later we'll see that the fabs are usually in the East, they're usually in Taiwan or in China, whereas the design facilities, the design floors, so to speak, are in the US. The places where design happens are in the West, and the places where the chips are made are in the East, if you're going to go that way. Okay, so next we come to the idea that photolithography machines need clean rooms. And this is very important because they're very expensive. They must be clean and steady, and they mustn't vibrate. This is where they actually make the chips in these foundries. They're called foundries. If you get several fabs together, they're a foundry. An advanced logic fab will cost you 20 to 40 billion dollars. This is they're incredibly expensive. But to make these, we would call them laboratories in the outside world, I guess. Okay, so design firms are known as fabless. I mean, the jargon gets a little tricky here. Fabless, what a word. Okay. Nvidia is fabless, and of course I've been featuring Nvidia as I go along. Nvidia is fabless. That means it doesn't have a technical, what I would call a technical laboratory to make silicon chips. Okay, it doesn't have fabs. Right. Then there are pure day foundries. The idea of the foundry is the place where the actual chip is made. We have the design firms known as fabless. Nvidia, as I've said, is fabless. Then there are the foundries. Firms can vertically integrate. Texas Instruments is one, where you have both your design and your factory, so to speak, your foundry, in the same complex. But this is very rare, and it's to do with labor costs and various other things. So that once again we have this business of the USA not generally having the foundries, but having the design sectors and being fabless. That's Fabless, if you haven't gathered that by now. Okay, so we've got a situation where the firm can vertically integrate or outsource. So the whole Taiwan situation, because it's a lot of this is done in Taiwan, the actual foundry work is a question of outsourcing from the USA. Okay, we have what we call IDMs, and these are integrated device manufacturers, and that's the combination of the foundry and the design sectors. And again, Texas Instruments would be your primary example of that. Okay, so what we've got here is a semiconductor market, and this is my last point. I'm sorry to be so specific today, but I thought I'd spend a day on terms, which has 5 or 6 major groups. A semiconductor market has 5 or 6 major groups. These are to do with memory chips, fabless enterprises, there you go with the word fabless, chip manufacturers, tool makers, foundries, and diversified integrated device manufacturers. Okay, so sorry once again to be so tedious and to be just talking terms, but I thought it was worth taking the time to get a basic working vocab going here. The more I go into Nvidia, the more I'm worried about getting lost myself, first of all, and secondly, losing an audience where I'm just throwing words around. So this little video will actually serve as a basic vocabulary video, a lexicon video, if you like. And thanks for putting up with me while I went through it term by term. Let's leave it there for today.